This week on the show, we're taking a quick look at the profound value of rest. If this feels a little bit off-putting, if you're not sure there's benefit in this episode to you, then I invite you to give me a few minutes to change your mind and let me share with you the power and the potential of rest. Thanks for joining us this week.
It's time to flip the script on stress and learn how to thrive today and throughout your days. Join me for inspiration and interviews with folks who are shining their light in the world in the areas of positive mindset, health, and well-being. I'm your host, Susi Vine. Let's get happified.
Welcome back. I am so happy to have you with me this week on the show for another conversation, just you and I, about wrapping this year up gently, putting a little bow on all that we have been through in 2025, and finding a way forward aligned and centered and more resilient to call down more of what we want to create in 2026. Thank you so much for joining me. Let's dig in to how I think you can really lay the foundation for a beautiful, centered, mindful year. And here's the secret ingredient. You might notice as the seasons change, as fall technically is winding down, although I know that across many of these states we've had heaps of snow already landing, so it's feeling very much like winter for a lot of us in North America these days. And I want to encourage you to take a cue from nature as it gets quiet outside, as the natural processes of growth, of rejuvenation, all of those external, visible processes slow down. Some of our favorite cuddly predators, bears and the like, are beginning to hibernate. I'm inviting you to carve out time to rest. Sound impossible? Perhaps initially it might feel like a pretty tall request, but I'm hoping that when you see the value of rest, that you will be inspired to stake the claim, to carve out the space, and to put yourself first so that you can start the new year off grounded and ready to face whatever is coming our way. So how, you might ask, is rest going to be such a priority that we can give it permission to crowd out everything else? Well, let's take a look at what it is and what it isn't. First, rest is not avoidance. Perhaps out of balance. Someone might prefer to sleep in, to draw the drapes, to close out the world and avoid what life beckons outside. But really, fundamentally, rest is not avoidance. It's in fact a very important part of a natural process of integration, of allowing ourselves to absorb, to take in, to file and create memories of everything that we're experiencing so that we can learn these lessons and call on them moving forward. So I invite you to celebrate the integration that comes from rest. Next, rest is not weakness. Rest is wisdom. Rest is using less energy, less of your own dynamic force to get things done. Rest is about cultivating your resources, drawing these things in close to you so that you have the inner fuel that you need to move forward. Rest is wisdom. And thirdly, rest is not procrastination. Perhaps, as I said, out of balance, it could be used as a method of putting off the things that we need to do. However, check that mental voice when you hear that rest is procrastination and ask yourself if rest is instead a method of preparation. because we know through science and through research that when we have quality rest, we are more resilient. We have the capacity to store and call upon our memories more effectively and efficiently. Rest is that time when our brain actually gets to cleanse and detoxify itself, cleaning all of the chemical byproducts of these very demanding energy processes that all of our brain cells do in a day. Rest is a beautiful form of preparation, not procrastination. Today, I hope you will continue to stick with me and look at how we can reframe coming through this last year and gazing into the new one with compassion. How we can celebrate the growth, even if, as is happening in the fall and in the winter, that growth might not be visible. A lot of what really matters, what really is happening, happens below the ground level, out of sight, in the roots. And so think about how we are growing even when we can't see the ready results of our efforts, and trust that it is all in divine timing and it is unfolding in the manner that is the best for you and the opportunities that are awaiting you around the corner, or as we turn the next calendar page. And so through the course of today's conversation, I'm inviting you to take a listen to what we'll be talking about, perhaps round out your list of self-care practices that are going to best serve you as we move into the year ahead. Because I know if you've been listening to this podcast, you have heard me say, but it can't be said too many times, self-care is not only bubble baths and scented candles. Self-care is all of the practices that it takes to feel nourished and restored. Self-care is eating quality food. Self-care is moving your body. And self-care is getting enough of that quality rest so that you have the resources to move forward and draw upon to create everything that you are inspired to do. Before you leap into those goals and those plans, what if you gave yourself permission to land first? We'll have plenty of time for that leaping later. So perhaps, like many of us, you have been caught up in this Western lifestyle. I know as a body worker, I help to relieve through massage and through Reiki, through energy work, the stuff that a lot of us carry when we subscribe to this Western definition of productivity, of spending hours at a desk, peering into a computer screen, not getting away, not standing up and stretching and moving our bodies, forcing ourselves to subscribe to a 7-day week, 24-hour clock, and showing up day after day to clock in, to clock out, to do the work that we have been hired to do. Whether you're working for someone else or you are working for yourself, it is the work that you have been hired to do. Perhaps you are your own boss, in which case I hope you'll call your boss in for this meeting and have them listen closely over these next few minutes we spend together. We, in this Western lifestyle, have subscribed to a productivity culture. We measure our growth by metrics, by the percentage of growth of output quarter to quarter, year to year. We look for those measurable, externally visible mile markers. And we tend to feel very guilty about slowing down, about asking for time for ourselves, even about taking the time that we have been given. Paid time off, vacation leave, holidays. I hear and see so many people at the end of this year suddenly whirling to try to get this time off taken before it slips away and they don't receive any compensation or restful time along the way because it won't roll over into the next year. So why, I would like to ask, why don't we give ourselves permission to rest more often? Why have we all been roped into this story of productivity? this guilt about slowing down? What is this fear that so many of us have about what we will be missing, about how we will feel if we pause? This is a bit of a sneaky one. I have certainly noticed in people that I work with that in sitting still, when we stop that external motion, when we stop putting energy outside of ourselves, many of us are not comfortable with what comes up in that stillness. I'd love for you to consider, to ask yourself if part of the reason you are so busy is because the alternative, because stillness feels uncomfortable for you. I'd like you to get curious about what it could be that you're avoiding. What voices are pushing you on, telling you stories about what that rest, about what that pause says about you, who you are, and what you are worth. Ooh, these are really good things to unpack. I hope you have your journal out. Come back to this podcast if you need to. If you're listening while you are going about your daily life, revisit this with a notebook, with an app where you can take down your journaled thoughts, and visit these ideas, because there's a lot to be learned from giving yourself some time, some space, some moments to write and see what flows through your pen when you consider what it is about stillness that feels uncomfortable for you. Now, let's just talk facts. What happens when you don't make time to rest? What does that look like? I've seen that look like burnout. I've seen that look like emotional numbness, about people staying busy, putting their energy outside of themselves so they don't have to look inward, so they can't hear that inner guidance that is asking for help, for support, for love, for healing, for space. What might you be trying to drown out by staying busy? I've seen it fuel reactive decision making. Once you are on a course of action, many of us, perhaps because we're embarrassed, perhaps because of pressure, we resist changing course. So what decisions are you making when we are not fully rested that are leading you to be more reactive, to make choices that are not serving you? How many paths have you embarked upon where you find yourself really wishing you could have taken a different path? If only you had responded differently at the beginning. If only you had become clear on what is aligned in action for you. I see people who refuse to rest become disconnected with their intuition and their values. I spoke about this just a few weeks ago. I will have a link in the show notes to my previous conversation about reviewing and relaxing into the year that we have just had, rather than diving into the next with plans, with goals, with metrics to look ahead to. Today we're just focusing on rest, but in that previous conversation, I really encouraged you to celebrate where we have come from and get centered and aligned about what you are moving into. Today, I'm slowing down as I'm inviting you to do the same, and we're just taking a deeper look at the quality and the power of rest. Rest helps to support our nervous system in repairing itself. Resilience comes from meeting stress and then from recovering so that we are prepared to meet it again. It's a muscle that we build through that action of recovery, and rest is an important part of that. In emotional integration, again, as I was just saying, how many times have you found yourself along a path that was chosen because you reacted in a certain way, emotionally or physically? It compelled you into an action that later on might not have felt aligned or even in your highest and best interest. So how can we become more emotionally integrated, more balanced, have the better capacity to respond? Through rest. We take more meaning from experiences. We learn lessons more deeply at a level at which we can see the entire picture. We can truly get perspective of what we had learned, where we can go, how we can apply these lessons moving forward when we have the capacity and the space that comes from being rested. And if you're like me and you are always in the pursuit, if you are aspiring to be more deeply connected to your creative forces, your creative energy, your creative vision, this comes from arriving in a state of mind that is rested, that is centered. So I invite you to become more closely connected to your creativity and to your clarity by enhancing, by deepening your relationship with rest. I also invite you to appreciate, to acknowledge the signs of growth, as I was just saying, that are not always visible, but that are so essential to what we are able to carry out and to do outside in the world. During this phase of rest, of fall into winter, while the trees are resting and storing their energy, even if the leaves have fallen, the branches become dormant, the rest of the tree, the rest of the tree comes to rest. There is still very important vital processes unfolding all the time. So for these reasons, I invite you to stake a claim for yourself that this is not a push season. If you're one of those that feels compelled, that feels inspired and truly aligned to make the fourth quarter the best quarter, to finish the year strong, to power through all those metrics, then more power to you. I wish you well on your journey. However, for most of us, I invite you to feel into the potential of not subscribing to a push season at the time of year when that's the last thing that many of us want to be doing. I invite you to join us in a rest and restore season. There's a very special event coming up if you're catching this podcast just as it's dropping in December. Then I have a very special event for you coming up this second week. I'll be sharing about that towards the end of our conversation today. But let's first take a look at how we can review this year more kindly, more gently, and how we can discover the true takeaways. Again, these are some writer downers, if you wish, some ideas that I invite you to journal on. If you're driving, you may pause this podcast and think about a topic that resonates with you, or I do invite you to come back and ponder these more deeply. First, I'd love for you to contemplate what has stretched me this year. And as you've heard me say, we work in circles of influence, personal, ourselves, family, community, regionally, globally, professionally, fits in there in that community level. What has stretched me this year? Any that come up, whether that's at the personal, the community level, the global level, it's just a time to let all these things go. A lot of these ideas, worries, things that we have noticed go swimming around our mind until we free them by writing them on the page. So write down any of the ways in which you have felt stretched this year. And then from this list, or perhaps even more ideas bubbling up to the surface for you, what has strengthened you this year? What has strengthened you this year? What lessons have you learned? What muscles have you built, metaphorically speaking, or realistically speaking? Perhaps you committed to a more consistent physical activity regimen. What has strengthened you this year? Next, I invite you to contemplate what has surprised you about yourself. What self-discoveries have you had this year? I hope there are some. If not, please be sure to join us this Friday for an event. And what are you proud of? And what are you feeling proud of, even if no one else saw it? Because truly, growth, confidence, pride in our accomplishments, building that faith that we have everything we need in order to do everything we are called to do, all of that comes from this inner well of confidence. So it's so important to think about, what are you proud of, even if no one else saw it? Those still matter. And here's a question. There might be some hard answers, ideas, aspects of the world that we have been living in coming up. Go ahead and write it down. Clear the cache. Free up that mental space. Contemplate, what did you survive that you once felt was overwhelming? Again, personally, at a family, professional, or community, or even global level. As you're reviewing these things, what you're proud of, what you've survived, you might have been calling up some goals that you had set for yourself. And in terms of these goals that you might not have finished, how can you change your perspective of these unfinished goals? How can you find that experience as information rather than as a failure? How can you grow insights into your readiness, your alignment, or your timing? You don't measure your life by only what you've checked off, but by who you become along the way. It's not about the destination, it's all about the journey, my friends, and that is what we are here to explore and celebrate every week here on the show. As always, if you know me, you know I am your cheerleader, and I am here to encourage you to celebrate your small wins. If you need to start a new column in your journal, go ahead, but start jotting down as a part of this review any that are coming up for you. Celebrate all of these wins emotionally, mentally, physically, professionally, personally. Celebrate any new boundaries that you have recognized, that you have established, that you have fortified in relationships. Recognize how you have grown in your resilience, in your adaptability, in your courage in meeting new challenges and demands. As we take all of these ideas, all of these awarenesses, as we begin to look more inward into ways that we can continue supporting ourselves, ways that we can continue to stake a claim to have these healthy boundaries and to celebrate our wins, even when they are not measurable. I invite you to redefine too what your self-care looks like. What is self-care for you? At different levels, we require different methods, modalities, levels of support. Physically, our sleep rhythm is essential. Staying hydrated, moving our bodies, balancing our nervous system, coming from sympathetic stress response back into parasympathetic, not only staying triggered and stuck in that chronic stress loop. How can we also support our emotional well-being? Some ideas of self-care there might be journaling, feeling without fixing, and growing your forgiveness practice. That's something we really dove into in the last episode on the show. A few weeks ago, I was looking at forgiveness and how that's a gift for yourself, most of all. Aspects of mental self-care can include limiting overstimulation. Again, that's the beauty of rest. We need a mental pause, an opportunity to exhale. Recognizing and enforcing digital boundaries. When are we available for notifications? When are we not responding? And creating more mental white space, whether that's creating buffers and calendar appointments, scheduling the things that you do for you, travel time, exercise time, meditation time. How can we prevent our calendar from being so overwhelming to look at that it in itself causes stress? And in terms of supporting ourselves on the energetic and spiritual levels, What methods of breath work do you find supportive, balancing, energizing? What types of meditation work best for you? Perhaps classical meditation, mindfulness, focusing on your breath, moving meditations, being in nature and being present to your experience. There are so many to choose from. Don't give up after you've only tried one or maybe two methods of meditation. How is sound healing and restorative to you? Maybe that's energizing music you can't help but dance to. Maybe that's peaceful music that helps you fall asleep at night. How does sound help to enhance the tapestry of your day, of your life experience? Get creative here. There's lots of playlists available on Spotify, on YouTube, different audio platforms that you can explore or create your own. And intention setting. Again, this is a beautiful thing to do on your own and a wonderful thing to do in the company of others when you can call on inspiration and you can have reflected back to you some of the goals, the intentions that you're setting for yourself. So I hope that you will join me on Friday for the Winter's Rest live stream event that I'm doing with my dear friend and creative partner, Monifa Harris. More about that coming up and in the show notes. So a point of reference may be, as you're auditing things in your life, as you're contemplating methods of self-care, ask yourself, does this restore me or does this distract me? How do I feel afterward? Do I feel more clear? Or do I still feel chaotic? Do I still feel distracted? Do I still feel overwhelmed? Don't give up until you really start connecting with practices of self-care that help you create that mental space, enjoy emotional relief, and really rest into physical relaxation and restoration. So as I have been teasing you already, this coming Friday, on the date of publication, this might be the very next day, but on December 12th, on 12/12, at 12 p.m. Pacific time, Monifa and I will be going live on her YouTube channel, and we'll be pulling back the curtain on the Winter's Rest process that Monifa has created, that we shared last year as a part of our Verve and Vision Sovereign Spirits Mastering Midlife podcast and project. And we're bringing it back this year by popular demand to again dive into the power of rest, the beauty of celebrating all that you have done, of recognizing and reviewing your growth, not just through 25, but even looking back through 24 and into the year 2023. And really celebrating all that you have done and grown through, and as you have arrived in this place where you are, what you are ready to call down for yourself. I'll have that link in the show notes. Please join us. That live stream commences again at noon Pacific time. That's going to be 3 p.m. Eastern time, but it just doesn't sound as great as 12/12 at 12. And join us for your own experience of a winter's rest. Let this be the year that you start the new year centered and aligned with a clear vision and inspired by everything you've done, as opposed to feeling frustrated, feeling overwhelmed, struggling against that list of goals and only counting what you weren't able to check off of that list. Let's look at how we can celebrate and clarify and grow together. In terms of rest that I've been speaking with you about today, I just want to close by saying you don't have to earn your rest. You don't have to prove your worth. Your renewal matters. As the energy shifts, as we feel more like spring, that external growth begins to become visible again, you'll be so much better prepared. You'll have all of your energy and resources available to truly shine, to bloom in the way that you are truly capable of. So thanks for joining me for this short conversation. I'd love to hear how this lands for you. Share in the comments. If you're catching this on YouTube or on Spotify, comment on this episode or at happifiedlife.com. What has been your resistance to rest? Has anything in this conversation given you a little light bulb moment or given you reason to give yourself permission to rest? Share that permission there so that somebody else can share your inspiration and help each other claim the space, celebrate our growth, and make peace with the process that is already unfolding and continues to unfold for all of us. Until next time, I'm wishing you a happy and healthy season. I look forward to seeing you on the live stream. Come join Monifa and I to examine the winter's rest process and to create your own. And until next time, take good care of yourself. I'll see you back here real soon.
Thanks for listening. You'll find all the resources we discussed today online at happifiedlife.com, along with links to subscribe to Happified on your favorite player and a handy search tool so you can search all of our previous episodes. Help us grow by leaving a quick review and share this episode with a friend. Until next time, keep on shining.